What's going on, Jets fans? Welcome into NYJ today. Bryant Still, welcome. I see a couple of people in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. And thank you to Jake Asman as well for joining us. How you doing today, Jake? Yep. So if you guys haven't noticed, Jake, his website is on the page on the screen that you're looking at right now, and he is also on YouTube. He's posting a lot of Jets content. So if you guys are not following him on Twitter, if you're not following him on YouTube, I would recommend very highly that you do. His work is very good, and we're just very excited to have you on the show today. So no audio for Jake. Let's take care of that. Sorry about that. That's not Jake's fault. That's my fault. All right, cool. So we got a topic number one, and topic number one is just simple. It says, what have been your thoughts on Joe Douglas's offseason to this point? Did you like what he did in free agency? And just general thoughts on the Sam Darnold trade, whether you liked it, whether you thought the move was good for him, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before I start, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you having me on the show, John. I love the setup that you have in the man cave, which is awesome.
Yes.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, as far as the overall offseason, I think a lot of it will still be determined based on how the draft goes. I think as far as free agency, they addressed a major need at the edge rusher spot with Carl Lawson. I'm excited about what he could bring in Salah's defense. Obviously, getting Corey Davis was a need as well. Getting another big play wide receiver on the outside, no matter who the quarterback was, that was a huge need for the Jets. So they hit on they spent big money on those two positions. I think bringing in a guy like LaMarcus Joyner was a really nice signing. I think he kind of fits the defense the Jets are going to run. So there's clearly some areas of weakness, some areas of need, and that's where the draft comes in. And that's where, every Jet fan that has confidence in Joe Douglas, needs to hope that, that he nails some of these picks, right? Interior offensive lineman, cornerback. So I think overall it's been a very good offseason. The Darnold trade, as much as I love Sam personally, to me, it just made too much sense to trade him, get whatever you can for him, and start fresh with a rookie quarterback. I just thought there was too much risk sticking with Sam and just hoping in year 4 he figures it all out. I thought there was too big of a risk and maybe too big of a distraction if you keep Darnold over choosing a rookie. And then the first 3 and out of the year at MetLife, the fans are going to be on Darnold, and I thought it could be an ugly situation. So I think overall they made the right move. I'm pleased with the return. And look, I mean, we know they're going quarterback second overall. Now it's on Douglas to identify which quarterback that is. It's going to be Zach Wilson, it looks like. And, he has to be right. But overall, I think the Jets are headed in the right direction. It's probably the most optimistic I've been with the Jets and, easily over the last 5 years or so. I mean, I was really optimistic after Sam's rookie year, but then they hired Adam Gase, and that went out the window right away. So we shall see how it unfolds. But overall, I think they're having a very good offseason.
Yep, you hit on some key things there. The pass rush, absolutely, and specifically the edge rusher and Carl Lawson. The thing that I really liked, one of the sneaky moves I feel like, was bringing in Sheldon Rankins. This is a former first-round pick. He's still young, and although he's coming off of an injury, I feel like that interior pass rush is just as crucial when you combine it with that edge threat. I feel like it's going to be very, very difficult for offensive lines that are facing the Jets. I just don't know how you block them all. I feel like you've got Carl Lawson, you've got Quinnen Williams, you've got now Sheldon Rankins potentially, you've got the Jonathan Franklin Myers, Foley Fatukasi. I mean, there's a lot of names on that defensive line, and so I agree. The Carl Lawson signing is a really, really good one, and I just think that it gives them finally a chance to have an edge threat, literally since the John Abraham days, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Right.
You also touched on the Sam Darnold trade. The thing that I kept saying all off season is that it wasn't necessarily that he couldn't work out in New York. It's just that I didn't think that he was going to get a fair shot. Like you said, the first 3 and out, like what were the fans going to do? And not even just the fans. One bad game, what's the media going to be saying? It's just going to be, it would have been way too hard for him to be successful this coming year. So I agree with all of what you just said. And I think you're right. The draft is a really, really big part of the pie. Like, we can't really determine the success of this offseason until we see what he does for this draft. Thank you guys for all coming in. I do see a lot of comments. Thanks, guys, so much for checking in. Hope you guys enjoy the content. So we'll just move on to topic 2. And topic two is just a question really for you. You talk to a lot of different people. You have a lot of different people on your show. Um, and some of them are scouts, some of them are former players, media people. And so I just wanted to know, since you have you have the an ear on what other people are saying, what do you think may be one of the big surprises, not just for the Jets, but maybe national or for the National Football League? What could be one of the big surprises that you could see coming on draft weekend?
Yeah, I think a lot of the draft is going to be centered around the quarterbacks. For a while, it was, well, it's the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. It was between the Jets and the Jaguars. Jaguars win, they're going to get Trevor Lawrence, of course. Well, they lost, and they get Trevor Lawrence, of course, depending on how you look at it. Then it was, well, what are the Jets going to do, right? The draft really starts at number 2 with the Jets, and that was true for a while, but we knew they were trending towards trading Sam Darnold. They traded Sam Darnold. Now we know they're going quarterback at 2, and all signs point to Zach Wilson being that guy at 2. So the draft now essentially starts with the 49ers at 3. So I think the biggest surprise will be whatever they end up doing with that third pick. Because at the beginning of all this, when they made the trade with the Dolphins, it was, oh, it's just going to be for Mac Jones. It's going to be Mac Jones. But now the betting markets indicate that Fields has remained or is the new favorite to go third overall. So I'm just fascinated by how that plays out, because depending on what San Francisco does with the third pick, it impacts what Atlanta might do at 4. It impacts what another team might do if they're trying to move up, like Denver moving up from 9, or the Patriots at 15. Who knows what other teams like Chicago or Washington could be lurking for a move at quarterback. So the draft really starts at number 3 with the Niners, because I don't know if anyone fully knows what they're going to be doing with that third pick.
Yeah, and I agree. So a lot of what you said is just so interesting to me because I feel like the same with a lot of people. They feel that Justin Fields should be the number 2 quarterback. And although I disagree, I think Wilson is a fair number 2. I've been saying all along Wilson's a 2A and Fields really is a 2B. So I can understand anybody arguing for either one of them. But when it comes to after the Jets pick, let's just say for they take Zach Wilson at 2, which we all believe is going to happen. I don't see how the 49ers do pass on Fields. I don't understand why they wouldn't want him over Mac Jones, and I don't understand the willingness to take a risk with Trey Lance. I just feel like with 17 games played in college football, that's a pretty underwhelming amount of games played in college, and the trends in NFL history suggests that if you have not played a lot of college football, you will struggle at the next level and potentially not work out at the next level. So I just find it very interesting that it's even really a discussion. I feel like the 49ers, I feel like it's a no-brainer. Whoever the Jets do not take, that's who they should take, in my opinion. What do you think as far as Justin Fields versus Zach Wilson? Like, where are you on them, on those two players, I should say? Because that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I would have no issue if the Jets did draft Fields. At the beginning of all this, I like Justin Fields. I think he's a really good prospect. I think, in a lot of other draft classes, he might be, the top guy. I think the way we kind of nitpick and pick apart these guys sometimes, it's counterintuitive. And I think Justin Fields is kind of going through what Justin Herbert went through when they nitpicked his last year at Oregon, what Deshaun Watson went through during his final year at Clemson. I mean, in hindsight, for Mitch Trubisky in 13 career starts to go before Deshaun Watson, I mean, that is just egregious, right? So I think sometimes we try and nitpick things. Like with Fields, it's, oh, well, he didn't have a great game against Northwestern. He wasn't great against Indiana. When meanwhile, you got 2 years of dominant play at a Big Ten school. And in the biggest game of Justin Fields' life, he outplayed Trevor Lawrence with a bruised rib and threw 6 touchdowns against Clemson. Like, let's not forget about that performance when it mattered. So I'm a big Fields fan. I would have no issue if the Jets drafted him. I'm leaning Wilson because my faith is in Douglas to make the right pick. So if he
Right.
wants Wilson, I'm all in on that pick. That's fine. But I think the idea that, Fields is somehow sliding and he might end up going behind Mac Jones or Trey Lance, I think that's a dangerous slope. I think whichever team ends up with Justin Fields is going to get a very good quarterback. I mean, there's no rule that says both Wilson and Fields can't be very good pros, and I think that's what's going to happen.
I think so too, and I think that I feel like there's a drop off, and that's kind of why I've been saying that all along. 2A and 2B. I feel like there is a drop off once those two guys are off the board. I feel like there's a pretty considerable drop off, and I prefer Wilson, and it's little to do with Fields not being as good. I think they're both excellent. I really like the fact that he's got an elite release with the football. Like it's an elite. He gets the ball out very, very quickly. And some of the best quarterbacks of all time have been able to do just that, get the ball out quickly. So that's one of my main reasons, and not to mention just the fact that he's also very mobile and can and move around in the pocket and avoid people. So that's one of the reasons why I love Wilson over Fields. But again, it's pretty negligible as far as the difference between them. Any surprises in the National Football League that you could maybe smell coming? I would love to hear. Other than the 49ers, I'm just wondering maybe like if you have like a player that you think might fall or someone that might go earlier than you expect.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by where the receivers in this class go. I mean, all this talk about Kyle Pitts, and rightfully so, he's a special talent. But let's not forget, like Devontae Smith won the Heisman Trophy as a wide receiver, and we're talking about him maybe being what, the third wide receiver taken somehow. I mean, his over under on where he's going to get drafted is 11.5. I think Devontae Smith is being undervalued here. I get it, Jamar Chase is great, Jalen Waddle's great, but we're going to knock Devontae Smith because he's not he's not the biggest guy. Like, really? I mean, did we not watch him electrify college football last year? So I think if he slides, there's going to be a team that gets maybe a guy we look at a couple years from now and go, why were teams so stupid not taking the guy that was clearly
Yeah.
the player in college? So he's a prospect I'm looking at. And I'm also curious to see where Penei Sewell goes. It felt like for a while, Sewell was by far and away the top offensive line prospect in this class. Well, now it seems like a lot of people love Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern. So I'm fascinated by who the first receiver is that gets drafted and the order in which the top three go. And then I'm also fascinated by, who's going to actually end up being the top offensive line prospect that gets drafted.
Yeah, early on in the excuse me, earlier on in the offseason, Benjamin Albright, who I'm sure you follow probably on Twitter, he had mentioned that a lot earlier than most people were even starting to talk about that and how Penei Sewell may not be the first offensive lineman off the board. And it was exactly what you just said. Rashawn Slater is the one that a lot of people believe could be the number one tackle off the board. Very interesting. And yeah, so the thing that's funny is I actually went on Twitter and I was talking about Devonta Smith and how I was a little bit worried about his frame, but I said, if that's if that's the only concern that you have with a player is maybe he's just a little bit slender, I think you're doing okay. And Devonta Smith is a beast. And I do agree that like I don't see why he would go after Jalen Waddle. I know there's a lot of hype around Waddle right now. I would still take Smith over Waddle. And I do prefer Chase. I love Jamar Chase. He's one of my favorite players in the draft. He's just an absolute dog. And I think he would fit pretty much in any. Like, you could probably move him around the field a lot more than maybe a Devonta Smith. And I think I like that versatility just a little bit more. But yeah, definitely cool. All right, let's go to another topic. And this topic is just going to touch on what you think Joe Douglas's approach during the NFL draft will be. Do you think he's going to look to potentially add more draft capital in this year's draft or future drafts?
Yeah, I see Joe being aggressive with trades again. I could see him. I could see the Jets actually trading out from the 23 spot. It would not shock me if the Jets move out and pick up an extra 2 next year, let's say, or and maybe they get a pick at the beginning of the second round. Like, it would not shock me if the Jets turn the 23rd overall pick into multiple picks this year and in next year's draft as well. That seems to be all part of the plan, especially now when you're selling the fan base on a full rebuild. It's easier to trade out of 23 when you have a rookie quarterback you're not paying any money to anymore, right? That you're resetting the timeline on everything. So I see Douglas making trades. I could see him kind of doing what he did last year, right? Where he ended up trading down out of the second round and they ended up getting Denzel Mims early third after all. And that ended up working out great, for the Jets. So I could see a lot of trades from Douglas. I think there's maybe a scenario if there's a player they love where they could even move up because you have all this draft capital. I do think the Jets are making moves, though. I don't think they're going to be complacent. This is not Dave Gettleman making drafts, who's never made a trade as a GM. This is
I saw that. That's insanity.
Yeah. So I think Douglas is going to wheel and deal a little bit. I think it should be fun. We know at number 2 they're staying put, and then I think from that point on, who knows where they're going to go.
Yeah, and I do weekly streams on the channel, and we do pretty extended ones. We were on there for 2 hours plus, and that's the thing that I've been saying over the last, I would say, the last 3 weeks or so, I've been preaching that Jets fans need to prepare themselves for that, because I remember when Denzel Mims was available with that second round pick and the Jets decided to trade back, we were all kind of shocked. Like, what the hell? What is this? They didn't take the best player. We all want him. And I feel like that's coming. I feel like it's either going to be at 23 or it's going to be at 34. I think one of those picks he's 100% going to move back from, or at least he's going to try like hell, I think, to do that. And I don't see that being a bad thing, because, again, even if he's sliding back to the late first round, we're still going to have that fifth-year option. And if he's sliding back into the early second round, we're gonna get a ton of picks for that move, I feel like. And even if it's a future pick, it's going to be a really premium pick. It's not going to be a mid to late round pick. So I think that's something that a lot of Jets fans aren't keeping in mind, and they need to, because draft night's going to be intense already. It's going to be very nerve wracking. I think everybody needs to know that's probably on the horizon, that there's going to be some sort of movement in that late first, early second round. You did mention the trade ups, and I do agree. I think that any trade up that he does, it's not going to be an overly large jump. It may be just one of those moves where he trades up, 5, 6, 7 slots to just maybe grab the guy that he wants. And he's not going to have to give up an insane amount of draft capital to do so. So I think that is possible as well. All right, great. We're chugging along here. We are on another topic. Everybody's talking about corner. Everybody's talking about interior offensive line. Those are obviously huge needs. So I'm asking you, what positions do you think the Jets need to pursue, or maybe they will pursue in the draft, that maybe not everybody's talking about? I have a couple in mind. I would just love to hear what you think as far as positions that are not being discussed by a lot of people.
Ooh, that's an interesting question, because I feel like Jet fans are on top of everything. I mean, the amount of players that have been kind of floated out there by the fan base, right? So, I mean, I could say running back, because I do think they're going to draft a running back. I don't think it will be in the first round, but I could see the Jets taking another flyer on a guy early second round, perhaps, maybe that 34th overall pick. If like ETN or Najee Harris somehow fall out of the first round, I could see them going running back, like we saw J.K. Dobbins get drafted early in the second round, like we saw Jonathan Taylor get drafted early in the second round. I think you never draft a running back in the first round, but there's real value in getting that guy in the second round, third round even too. So I think Jet fans are talking about the running back spot, but the focus is way more on interior offensive linemen and corner, that maybe running back is falling a bit. I also think wide receiver. It wouldn't shock me if the Jets love a receiver early in this draft and they take a chance on another wide receiver. You can never get enough playmakers for your rookie quarterback. Don't make the same mistake they made for Sam Darnold. Get Zach Wilson as many playmakers as possible. They also could look and go tight end early. I don't think it's a great tight end class by most people's standards, but you know what? If they like someone, get them, because they need playmakers. I don't care what type of position they are.
Very good. Yeah, I agree. So the thing that I mentioned on our last stream, I think, again, wide receiver is a need that's not being discussed. Keelan Cole's on a 1-year deal. Jamison Crowder's on the last year of his contract. So if we're just pretending that it's now all of a sudden 2022, we have Corey Davis, we have Denzel Mims, and we have not a whole lot left in the cupboard. And so I've been preaching about him, and I see somebody mentioning him. Kadarius Toney is my love child in the draft. I just feel like, I know he might not be, the highest on everybody's board, but I feel like that's a guy that could come in and contribute year one. He would not be relied on to be a top tier talent on the team. If he somehow fell to 34, though, I don't know how he could pass up on somebody like that. He just offers so much versatility. He would offer the flexibility to motion him, which, again, I still feel like we don't really have anybody that we can throw into motion and really make the defense go, oh God, what are we going to do now? He's in motion. Like, we need to adjust. Like, who are we putting in motion right now? It's not going to be somebody like Denzel Mims, because he's not really a threat on an end around or on a jet sweep. And the other thing that's cool about Kadarius is you can line him up as a running back. He's done it in college, and he's not the biggest guy, but when you watch him on tape, he is extremely physical. He does not I don't know if you remember Santana Moss, and I'm not knocking Santana by any means, but he used to, kind of get out of bounds. Like that was his game. He would avoid hits, and there's nothing wrong with that. He is not that. Kadarius Toney, 5'11", about 200 pounds or so. He is physical, and I would love to have somebody like a Debo Samuel in this offense, and I feel like he would be the closest thing to that. What are your thoughts on Kadarius?
I love
Not
this
necessarily that we
prospect.
draft him, just idea of maybe getting somebody like him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you nailed it. Playmaking. They just don't have enough of it. Period. I mean, that's been the biggest issue with this team for years now. And you have a rookie quarterback who's mobile, that can escape the pocket and make plays, get athletic playmaking receivers or tight ends or whatever position to help the kid out. So I'd be all for it. If they took a wide receiver at 34 or a running back at 34, I'm all about it. The defense is automatically going to be better by bringing in Robert Saleh, a defensive-minded head coach. The defense is also going to be better with Quinnen Williams in year 3. You're getting C.J. Mosley back on that defense. You added LaMarcus Joyner. You still have Marcus May. Obviously, they need to add a cornerback. There's still work to be done on defense. They're by no means an elite defense yet. But in today's NFL, you got to score points. And the Jets have not, simply put, they have not scored points over the last couple of years. They've had the last ranked offense in the NFL under Adam Gase. It has to change. And the only way you do that is by obviously having a better scheme, which automatically they will because Gase is gone and now they're running a Shanahan offense. But they also need playmakers. You mentioned it. You have Jamison Crowder, nice slot player. Denzel Mims, nice outside threat. Corey Davis, nice outside threat. Really good run blocker, too. That should help open up some holes in the running game. But you still kind of need that X factor type of player. And I think, Tony would be a perfect fit in the offense. So if he's there and they have, they're sitting there 34th overall, why not? I'd be all about it. You might have to
Yeah,
worry about Jacksonville taking him though, because they might look at it the same way the Jets do.
yeah, and I think Jacksonville might be one of those, one of those teams that they have 2 first-round picks like the Jets, and I could see them grabbing somebody for Trevor Lawrence with that with that late first-round pick. I just hope that we have an opportunity to do that, or at least that we have to make that decision in the second round. It would be really nice to get another weapon. The other one that you mentioned was tight end, and I agree with that because it's not just the fact that Chris Herndon was inconsistent and obviously had, had a down year last year. We don't have anybody else that can really stretch the middle of the field. And I think that the 49ers offense, or the Shanahan offense, I should say, kind of relies on that tight end to open up the running game by having that threat in the middle of the field. It causes the linebackers to have to make a decision, quickly after the snap, to have to decide, is this a passing play? Is this going to be a running play? I don't want to get burnt by this tight end. So, what are your thoughts on Brevin Jordan? He's one of my favorites for using a mid-round pick on a tight end just because of his athleticism. He's lined up as a wide receiver in that Miami offense, and I just think that if we were going to take somebody at tight end, I would really like him. I know he's not a polished tight end necessarily, but I just feel like he could be one of those guys that we could draft. He can play a little bit of football this year, and as we develop him and coach him, could be ready to take on a big role moving forward. So what are your thoughts on Brevin Jordan?
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I think they just, I sound like beating a dead horse here, but I don't think it can be emphasized enough. They need playmakers. He fits
Yeah,
and I'm not relying on Chris Herndon, to magically turn into the player that we all thought we were getting after he played well at the end of his rookie year. I mean, that was a long time ago already. I mean, the last couple of years he's been hurt or ineffective. And how many passes did he drop right in his hands last year? So, right now the tight end depth for the Jets, there's not much to get that excited about. Like maybe Herndon could be a player, but I'm drafting someone. I'm not taking a chance on him developing, into the player we thought he'd be. They gotta invest in that position. They didn't do it in free agency. We know they tried. They were in on some of the top tight ends that were on the open market. And usually when a team is in on a major free agent position and they strike out or it doesn't work out, they end up then going out there and obviously, addressing it in the draft. So I think that's where, I think, that's where Joe Douglas has to be creative here and find the right guy to, fit the need, so to speak.
that's a good point. When they swing and they miss in free agency, you're right. It typically leads to them making a move in the draft. So I would definitely keep my eyes out for a tight end. All right, great. We're chugging along. We got another topic. I think this is our last one, but we can go to the chat. If you guys have any questions for Jake, I can pull those aside and I will throw them at him before he ventures on his way. So the last topic, excuse me, a lot of Jets fans on social media, they are kind of, let's say, they're a little bit anxious for the Jets to make a move at cornerback. And I've kind of been trying to remind people that the market right now is frozen. Nobody's getting signed. So you may want us to sign a cornerback, but it's just not going to happen right now. It's going to happen after the draft, if at all. What are your thoughts on what they should do after the draft, as in terms of post-draft free agency? I have a couple of cornerbacks that I like. I think a lot of people do. What are your thoughts on post-draft free agency?
Yeah, I think that's when these moves are going to be made. I mean, you look at the corner market. You're right. No one's signing cornerbacks right now. They're all still available, so it's going to play out after the draft. And I think the Jets have shown you under Douglas they're not going to overspend. Like all the contracts they signed guys to in free agency were not overspends, right? They were like market rate deals. They were all contracts given where they have escapability after a year or two. I mean, that's what Douglas did last year. That's what he's done this year. And the two big time contracts he gave out this offseason into to Davis and Lawson, both guys are 26 years old. So
Yep.
Douglas has a philosophy where he's clearly not going to overpay for what you did in your career, but he thinks you're going to project to do going forward. So if the Jets end up signing a couple of veteran corners, I think they'd be 1 year deals. Like, I don't think the Jets are going to be giving big money to any of these free agent cornerbacks that are out there. I could see them ending up with Richard Sherman if he wants to play in Salah's defense again and kind of be that veteran presence that can lead the way and, change the culture, so to speak, inside the locker room. If he wants to do it, he might want to sign with a team that's a lot closer to contending. There's also other names out there, though. So it doesn't just have to be Sherman, although it seems like a lot of Jet fans would love Richard Sherman to be the guy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people like I think it's Steven Nelson from Pittsburgh. A
Yep.
lot of people talk about him. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Brian Poole is brought back. Excuse me. I know they have Javelin Guidry on the roster, and they seem to like him a lot. I think it makes a lot of sense, though, to have some depth at slot cornerback. It's a pretty important position on the defense, so I wouldn't rule that out. He's still sitting there, and I just think that not enough fans realize that when the market isn't moving like this, there's a reason. Number one, the teams aren't interested in signing players right now. They're focused on the draft. And number two, these players aren't really interested in signing because these teams aren't going to pay top dollar. They're going to wait. They want to wait. And so all the players aren't interested right now because these teams are not ready to invest. And so I think that's just a friendly reminder. Yeah, there are a couple of people. So I'm getting some comments right now about Newsome in the draft. I really like Newsome. If he's there at 23, he's going to be really hard to pass up, even though I do want to go heavy offense. Just a couple of things I want to go back to. So you did talk about free agency, and we talked about free agency earlier. That is one of the biggest positives in the philosophy that Joe Douglas brings to it, is just not overspending, and it's contracts that are friendly and that he can get out of, like you said, in a year or two. It's definitely a different approach than what we're used to as Jets fans. They just never did that. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the draft, and I can't remember what I was going to say, but it's all right. I forgot the note that I was going to make. All right, great. If you guys have any questions for Jake, we're going to wrap this up. I don't see any questions right now. So a lot of people are just talking about O-line. Zaven Collins is an interesting name. I had read not too long ago, they were talking about him potentially being a top 15 pick. It would not shock me if he is one of the first linebackers off the board, actually. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that happened. Jake, I just want to thank you again for your time. I know you're a busy guy. It really means a lot to me that you would come on the channel and talk some Jets with us. Guys, again, if you are not following Jake on Twitter, the social is on the screen right now. If you have not checked out his website, if you have not gone to his YouTube channel, highly recommend that you do so. Top-notch quality content. Jake, thank you very, very much for coming on the show.
My pleasure, John. Thanks so much for having me, man. And we'll talk again soon. There's always something going on with the Jets.
That's right. Oh, wait, we got one question. Hold on. Sorry. Joe, let's see. He did ask a question. Sorry, before a little bit climatic there. tactic. So he did say, Jake, who would you grab at linebacker? He says, where do you think it is in our, excuse me, in terms of our top needs?
I would say it's a need, but I don't probably rank it as high as I would corner or interior offensive lineman. Like they're probably going to draft the linebacker, but you know they signed what's his name in free agency. They're going to get C.J. Mosley back. I don't think they're going to trade him. I think they're going to play him and just see what he has coming off a year where he opted out. So I mean, it's definitely a need, but they actually have some depth at that position. It's not great, but if their edge rush and their pass rush overall is probably as improved as we think it will be, that will help mask maybe some of their deficiencies, with the linebacking core and with the secondary, especially if they go corner at 23 or they end up signing a couple of these guys we just talked about. So I think it's a need. By no means is this team perfect. I mean, they won 2 games. You could pretty much improve everywhere coming off the
Exactly.
season the Jets just had. But I think they're actually okay at linebacker. It's not as glaring of a need as some of the other positions we talked about.
Right. And I'll kind of piggyback off of that. They are not going to come out of this draft, or we're not going to come out of this draft and say to ourselves, oh, yeah, they patched every hole. There are going to be holes on this team still after the draft. Even with all the draft capital that they have, they are going to still have some spots where we're like, oh, damn, like, we're going to need to improve on this. But, that's the whole idea with Joe Douglas's approach, is that he is continuing to stockpile those 2022 draft picks because he knows he's not going to be able to finish the job after this year. So we'll wrap it up there. Again, thank you so much, Jake, for coming on the show. Guys, again, consider subscribing to his channel and to mine if you guys enjoyed the content today. We really appreciate it. Go Jets, and we will see you guys next time. And a word from my daughter. Jets!